Well, South Korean voters have elected Yoon Suk-yeol of the Conservative People Power Party as their next president. Yoon has claimed victory in a tight race against Lee Jae-myung of the ruling Democratic Party. And for more on that, let's go live with our correspondent Jack Barton in Seoul. Hello there, Jack. Well, Yoon has claimed victory in the election and in a very tight race, actually. So tell us more about him and also the Wednesday's vote and also the whole election.
Yeah, that's right. We've seen over the last month this incredibly narrow lead by Yoon Suk-yeol, and normally the opinion polls aren't that accurate, but this time it turns out they were dead on. He secured the presidency with the slimmest ever margin in a South Korean election of just under 0.8%. So a very tight victory. He's a former prosecutor general. He has no real political experience at all at a national or any level. He's best known for working on the investigation of former president who was impeached, Park Geun-hye, whose revamped party, ironically, he now leads, and also investigating members of Moon Jae-in's government linked particularly to a big property scandal. And that's a big issue here in South Korea because one of the big issues for voters is the sky-high property prices. And while this was going on and the government was trying to bring those prices down, it turned out a number of government officials were sort of profiting from housing schemes. And his election is seen in some ways as a backlash. So no doubt many voters cast a protest vote against that corruption scandal, which is probably what got him just across the line. But he is a very divisive character, not just because of his lack of experience. Definitely more men voted for him. We see that from the result than women, because he has promised to disband the gender equality ministry, saying he sees no systemic discrimination against women in Korea. And, you know, on a number of other issues, perhaps the hardest thing for him will be to get some of his legislation through the National Assembly, because that is still dominated by the ruling Democrat Party. That is the party currently in power until Yoon steps in, and they don't hold elections until 2024. So whatever he proposes between now and then, it's going to be a tough fight to get it through that legislative body.
Does this mean that the country is going a more conservative way? How different are Yoon's planned policies to the agendas of President Moon Jae-in?
Yeah, quite a big difference. When we see in terms of reviving the economy, President Moon and certainly the party's candidate in this election, Lee Jae-myung, very much about boosting the economy through expanding government, creating more public service jobs, about expanding welfare, whether it be maternity leave or pensions, just creating growth through an expanded state. Yoon is quite the opposite. He's talking about small government, about a lighter touch when it comes to regulation on businesses. You know, he is very much a conservative in the traditional sense, but also big differences when it comes to foreign policy. Under the Moon government, we saw relations with Japan fall to their lowest ever level since the end of the Second World War. Yoon seems to want to get this back on track, to work with Japan again, also to work more closely with the United States and the regional Quad allies of Japan, Australia, the US and India. So he's definitely tilting more that way, but perhaps the biggest policy difference and the most alarming to those who didn't vote for him is his policy on the DPRK. You know, he said he's in favor of a preemptive strike if he feels that the South is threatened. He's called for more THAAD anti-missile systems to be deployed, and he's certainly taking a very, you know, sort of tough tone when it comes to North-South relations. And but, you know, many analysts saying he said that just to get the elderly voters, people above 60, and he certainly did that. They got him across the line in the election. But whether he actually follows through with some of these policies, now that he's president, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, of course, we need more observations about what the new president is going to do to deal with domestic and diplomatic matters. Thank you very much. Jack Barton reporting from Seoul.